Every year, roughly 600,000 people go missing in the US. Of those people found every year, roughly 4,400 remain identified. Whatever the reason, these individuals came to their end. Without help, they will continue to remain nameless, with their loved ones never getting closure. Time passes without any answers. Some don't even know where to look to get help. Some remain lost. Videos like these help keep cases alive, no matter how old, in hopes of finding new information to put a name with a face and bring these people home. I use the DOE network for my YouTube channel that features unidentified males and females who have passed by means other than foul play that usually don't get as much news coverage as a case that does involve foul play. Through my series Never Forgotten, I cover 3 or 4 different cases that have to do with accidents of various kinds of sadly, somewhat ending their lives, where a missing persons case may never have been filed due to families believing a loved one ran away or has a loved one with other problems. Upon looking through several cases, I came across one that was a much bigger case than any other, and this one does involve foul play and spans decades. Let's dive into the Fort Myers 8. On the surface, this seemed like a single unidentified John Doe, case number 103GUMFL. A composite sketch was made and all info was entered into the database with the usual date of discovery, state of the body as found, any identifiers that can be used to put a name to a face, including available fingerprints, dental and DNA, and clothing and personal affects if found. It didn't turn into a much bigger case until I read the circumstances of discovery. On March 23, 2007, a land surveyor discovered 2 human skulls in a wooded area near Arcadia Street in Fort Myers, Florida. Upon contacting law enforcement, a search ensued, and altogether 8 skeletal remains were found. All were down to just bones, with some showing signs of animal marks, and no clothing or personal effects were found. Before long, though, law enforcement officially dubbed the cases as all being homicides. They were not quick to admit this was an act of a serial killer until all other options were exhausted, and one by one the dead were given names. The first 2 victims, Eric D. Kohler, age 21, and John C. Blevins, age 38, were identified within the first year. As the victims' lives were told by family members, a pattern emerged quickly. Both were drifters and were considered having high-risk lifestyles due to constant changes of residency and prolonged periods of non-communication. It quickly became obvious that the Fort Myers 8 were victims of a serial killer. After the first 2 confirmed identifications, 2 more have been officially confirmed since 2007. In 2008, Jonathan Tyhe was identified through familial DNA, and a background was constructed that he was born November 7, 1970 in Illinois, but spent most of his life in Florida. In his adult life, he had some run-ins with the law and drifted from place to place before death. At the time, he had a warrant for his arrest for a violation probation. What is known of his last period of time in life is he had contacted his mother for some money and was last seen in Fort Myers in October 1995. Though identification was made, no cause of death was determined. The fourth victim to be officially identified is Bobby Sodden. His identity was confirmed in 2022. Again through familial DNA. This time, however, it is stated that even though not specified how deep, it was reported that Bobby Sodden's body was buried. This identification process took a good amount of time longer for various reasons. First, like the others, he was a drifter and no missing persons report was filed. Through his DNA, a family tree had to be constructed and living family members had to be contacted for a direct link. Second, his family was from out of town and was connected through authorities to the Fort Myers area. Not much is known about his life story, as after the fourth identification and timeline were established to all four victims, the focus became on the suspected serial killer in the same area at the time of the Fort Myers 8 disappeared. Not that authorities aren't still focused on the identification of the final four, because they are, and it is still an active set of cases. Though names of identified victims are not released to the public until family members are notified first, it has been confirmed through the DOE network that 3 more victims have been identified through DNA. Again, as this is an ongoing investigation, investigators will only release limited info to the media. This update is straight from the DOE network and research for Never Forgotten. To this date, May 2004, 7 of the 8 remains have been identified. It has taken 17 years, however nobody gave up on these victims found by chance in 2007. However, just as in the Hog Trail murders case, 1 victim still remains unidentified. If the cases are linked, this last individual had to have gone missing before 1996 before Daniel Conahan was arrested. If the pattern is consistent, he could have been a drifter and possibly out-of-state relatives. Also, there may have never been a missing person report on him. Until someone makes a link, he may go longer without a name. Hopefully when he is identified, a date of death can be determined, and if that date is after 1996, the Fort Myers may 8th be victims of an unknown serial killer, and that will be a whole other story.